In the weeks since the killing of political commentator Charlie Kirk, a cloud of confusion, accusation, and speculation has continued to deepen. What began as a tragic shooting on a Utah University campus has now spiraled into an intense public debate about government transparency, aviation records, and the possibility of something far larger at play: a potential military connection. At the center of the controversy stands Candace Owens, who has publicly stated that Kirk's death was not random, not coincidental, and not purely political. Instead, she claims it was part of a wider, coordinated operation, a military one. Her reasoning is built around a curious trail of flight data, inconsistencies in official explanations, and what she describes as deliberate obstruction by federal authorities. Whether this theory holds weight or not remains unclear. But the evidence she and others have presented has compelled many to question what exactly happened in Utah that day, and why so many appear to be guarding the details. On the afternoon of Charlie Kirk's assassination, two aircraft drew unusual attention from online flight trackers and aviation enthusiasts. One of them, a plane registered under tail number N1098L, had departed from Texas and was seen traveling toward Utah at roughly the same time the shooting occurred. The plane dipped low in altitude as it approached the region, and though there was no confirmed link between the flight and the events on the ground, the aircraft's history raised eyebrows. It had previously been used in military operations. According to Owens, this alone was enough to suggest the possibility of federal or military awareness of what was unfolding in Utah. The plane, she said, might not have been a coincidence. If a military-registered aircraft was in the area at the time of the assassination, she argued, then someone, somewhere, knew something. Further investigation revealed that the plane was owned by a company called Aviation LLC, which, according to Owens, was operating under a government contract. That detail, she argued, deepened suspicions that the flight's purpose was more than routine. Still, as of now, no evidence has surfaced to directly connect the aircraft to Kirk's death. Independent investigators and online analysts have repeatedly requested clarification, but Owens claims that inquiries into the plane's flight path, destination, and FBO landing information have been met with silence. Information about this flight is being guarded, she said. Feds are protecting flight records and private terminal data. That doesn't make sense unless there's something to hide. Another layer of the mystery involves a second plane, a Bombardier Challenger 300, that took off approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes after Kirk was shot. Records show the plane departed at 1:43 p.m. Mountain Time, while the shooting itself occurred around 12:23 p.m. That aircraft was linked to a high-profile Utah businessman, Derek Maxfield, and his wife, Shalane Maxfield, known for selling a beauty company for billions of dollars before shifting into philanthropic ventures. As speculation grew online, Maxfield publicly dismissed the connection between his plane and the shooting, calling it a baseless conspiracy theory. He stated that private jets routinely disable their ADS-B transponders during certain routes, and that such practice is not illegal under FAA regulations. However, Owens claims discrepancies exist in these statements. According to her, Kash Patel, a former intelligence and defense official, contradicted Maxfield's account by claiming that the plane's transponder had never been turned off, directly opposing what Maxfield had said on social media. The conflicting narratives only fueled further suspicion. "We're not even getting straight answers about whether this plane's transponder was on or off," one investigator said. "If two high-profile individuals are saying opposite things, someone isn't telling the truth." Owens further alleged that individuals tied to the Maxfields were under investigation for connections to human trafficking networks operating in Utah, a claim not substantiated by law enforcement, but widely circulated among online researchers. The The result was a surge in public interest and confusion. For many, these inconsistencies about ownership, flight paths, and permissions echoed what they perceived as a broader pattern of obfuscation and control. When Owens raised these points publicly, she drew both strong support and strong skepticism. Her detractors argue that while the details are unusual, the evidence she presents remains circumstantial. The presence of a military-registered aircraft in nearby airspace does not, by itself, prove a coordinated operation, nor does an unverified conflict in transponder data indicate conspiracy. But to her supporters, these elements fit a pattern that echoes decades of distrust in official narratives, from the assassination of John F. Kennedy to the classified files of Jeffrey Epstein. Owens herself framed the event as part of a continuum of secrecy, the deep state, as she calls it, protecting its own interests and suppressing public scrutiny. In her words, they wanted this to be seen. They wanted to make a statement, but what they didn't expect was that we would watch it unfold in real time, and we would remember. She argues that Kirk's death, filmed and shared widely across social platforms, transformed from an act of violence into a global reckoning, one that made concealment impossible. In the 1960s, she notes, Americans learned of Kennedy's assassination through newspapers and delayed television broadcasts. Today, the death of a political figure is witnessed in high definition, analyzed frame by frame, by millions around the world. The result, she claims, is a generation that no longer accepts official statements at face value. Yet others, while agreeing that transparency is lacking, caution against conflating uncertainty with conspiracy. One analyst summarized this view succinctly. There are oddities. No one denies that. But oddities are not evidence. Unless we can connect these flights, these officials, and these actions directly to the shooting, we're still in the realm of speculation. That tension between skepticism of authority and the need for proof defines much of the public discourse surrounding Kirk's death. The story is no longer simply about one man's assassination. It has become a test case for how modern society processes truth, evidence, and trust in the digital age. As Owens continued to present her findings, she also turned her attention to another figure, Josh Hammer, a conservative commentator and one-time ally of Charlie Kirk. Hammer, who had exchanged messages with Kirk shortly before his death, published a long statement describing his final interactions with him and attempting to dispel rumors about internal disputes. Owens, however, accused Hammer of misrepresentation, alleging that his statements were inconsistent and self-serving. According to her, Hammer's version of events sought to protect a pro-Israel narrative that Kirk had allegedly begun distancing himself from in the final days of his life. The controversy erupted after leaked messages appeared to show Kirk writing, "I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause." Hammer dismissed this as emotional venting, arguing that Kirk had not abandoned his long-standing support for Israel, but was merely expressing frustration after disagreements with donors. Owens countered that this was not a momentary lapse in judgment, but a decisive shift in Kirk's stance, one that may have alienated influential political backers. The dispute quickly escalated. Hammer released text messages that he said proved his account, while Owens accused him of twisting facts and exploiting Kirk's death for personal publicity, even suggesting that Hammer's behavior in promoting his book during the aftermath was reprehensible. In her broadcasts, she described him as an untrustworthy manipulator, while other commentators went further, accusing Hammer of deliberately misleading the public. Through it all, Hammer denied any wrongdoing, insisting his statements were both factual and compassionate. Yet the rift between him and Owens symbolized the larger divide that Kirk's death had exposed, a fracture within a political movement already strained by ideological battles over loyalty, foreign policy, and faith. The competing narratives, of secret flights, deep state interference, and betrayal among allies have made it nearly impossible to separate verified fact from collective suspicion. Investigators and journalists who have tried to follow the trail face significant obstacles. Flight records for both aircraft exist, but obtaining comprehensive data on private and government-contracted flights is notoriously difficult. Many logs are sealed or available only through subpoena. FBOS, fixed base operators, the private terminals through which many private aircraft operate, have also reportedly refused to provide details about the flights in question. Owens claims that one FBO initially confirmed receiving the aircraft, but later denied that it had ever landed there. To her, this contradiction is proof of interference. To others, it's simply evidence of bureaucratic caution amid public hysteria. But either way, the absence of clear answers continues to fuel speculation. The emotional dimension of this story cannot be ignored. For Owens and many others, the fact that Kirk's death was captured and shared in real time was a turning point. They argue that the public witnessing of such a moment, the assassination of a prominent political voice, shattered the boundary between citizen and state narrative. Unlike the assassinations of earlier decades, this one unfolded not through controlled media channels, but across social networks, dissected by millions of independent viewers. To Owens, this democratization of information is both a blessing and a curse. It has made censorship more difficult, but has also allowed misinformation to spread unchecked. Still, she insists that public scrutiny remains the most powerful weapon against institutional corruption. "You wanted us to watch," she said, "but what you didn't expect is that we would keep watching, and we're not going to stop." Her words resonate deeply with a generation raised in an era of live-streamed war zones, leaked documents, and viral whistleblowers. For them, trust is not granted. It must be earned. Critics of Owens' investigation emphasize that many of her claims rest on inference rather than verifiable evidence. Aviation experts point out that multiple unrelated aircraft routinely share airspace near populated areas, and that both planes mentioned in her theory have plausible, non-sinister explanations for their flight paths. Aviation analysts reviewing the N1098L data confirmed that the plane's movements, though unusual, did not violate standard operating procedures. And while the aircraft's past use in military contexts raised questions, ownership under a civilian LLC made its role less clear-cut. Meanwhile, FAA officials have stated that it's not uncommon for private jet operators to disable or redirect transponders for privacy or security reasons, a practice often misunderstood by the public. Yet despite these explanations, many online remain unconvinced. Each contradiction, each denial, adds another layer to the growing perception of secrecy. The broader implications of the controversy stretch far beyond Utah. It reflects a country deeply divided not just politically, but epistemologically. Divided in what it considers truth. One side sees hidden power structures, state-sanctioned deception, and coordinated suppression. The other sees the unchecked spread of misinformation and opportunists exploiting tragedy for attention. Between them lies a shrinking space for objective investigation, a space once filled by traditional journalism but now contested by citizen researchers and content creators. In this void, stories like Kirk's become more than investigations. They become battlegrounds for public trust. As of today, no official report has confirmed or denied the existence of a military connection to Charlie Kirk's killing. Federal authorities maintain that the case remains under investigation and have refused to comment on specific claims about aircraft, flight paths, or private individuals. Meanwhile, Owens continues her independent inquiry, stating that she will not stop until the truth, whatever it is, comes out. Others in the investigative community share her persistence, though not necessarily her conclusions. They argue that whether or not her theory proves accurate, the process of demanding transparency remains essential. The questions themselves, they say, matter, even when answers are elusive. As the weeks turn into months, the story of Charlie Kirk's death has become less about one man and more about the system around him, a system defined by secrecy, influence, and distrust. Two planes, conflicting testimonies, guarded data, political betrayal, and a grieving nation struggling to discern what is real. Was it a targeted assassination, a tragic coincidence, or something in between? For now, the truth remains suspended, somewhere between classified reports, encrypted communications, and the shifting winds of public perception. But one fact endures. The death of Charlie Kirk has forced a reckoning, not just with power, but with the narratives that shape it. In a time when every image, every recording, and every flight path can be traced, analyzed, and dissected, silence may no longer be sustainable. And so the question remains, who is guarding the truth? And how long can they keep it hidden?